right, we've gone through the list of options. This bottom option is grid lines and ticks. So we're going to be looking at these grid lines. Okay, we've got these horizontal ones and tick marks. So we're missing some little tick marks here on the horizontal and the vertical axis. So let's see what we can do about that. So let's go down to grid lines and ticks and let's expand those options. And we need to scroll down in order to see them. All right, now we can change the options on the vertical axis, okay, which is this one, the frequency. And we can click on that and look at options for the horizontal axis. And you can see the options available to us are very limited between the horizontal and the vertical. So this is all we've got to turn on major tick marks for the horizontal axis versus the vertical axis. There is a lot more. But let's start with the horizontal axis. Okay, that's right here. And we are going to turn on major ticks. And as soon as we turn that on, kind of look and see what happens over here. So we turn that on. Now we've got these tick marks. Right? But with tick marks, now that we've got this clicked, it opened up some new options down below. And so under ticks position, this is actually kind of like the format of our tick marks. We don't want the tick marks to cross the x-axis. We want them to be outside the x-axis. And the tick length, I would maybe set it at 6. And for the thickness, let's make that a thickness of 2. We can maybe type in 3, but we'll just put 2 for now. Another line color, just make sure that that's black. All right, and that's all we can do is just add these tick marks. Now, these tick marks delineate the lower and upper boundary for each class. So here for this class, we've got a lower boundary and an upper boundary. For this class, we've got a lower boundary and an upper boundary. So these labels that we've got here on the x-axis, these are the class boundaries for all 9 classes. All right, so that is all that we can do on the horizontal axis. So let's now go to the vertical axis and look at those options. Okay, and there's more to choose from. All right, so let's just kind of go down the line. So on the vertical axis, which is here, the major spacing type, I would love to choose step, because with step, right now it's stepping at 25. But let's say instead of counting by 25s, what if I wanted to count by 20s? Well, it would be nice if I could put step and then I could type 20 over here. But I can't, it's ghosted. I don't know why I'm not allowed to do that. So we have to work with count. So what does count mean? Well, count refers to the number of tick marks that we've got over here, and it's set to auto. So for example, if I set this to 1, okay, that allows us only 1 tick mark at 0. If I set this to 2, I've got 1, 2 tick marks. So what if I wanted this to be by 20s? Then I need to keep increasing the number of tick marks until I get a number of tick marks. So 5 tick marks will give me 25s. And so I think if I try and go higher, let me try 10. That won't do it. Let me do 11. Let's see here. Oops, I think I put a picture. There we go. Oh no, that does 10s. Let me try 7. No, let's try 6. There we go. So if I use 6 tick marks, that'll give me a step of 20. Let's see. So that looks okay. that looks like that would be fine. So we'll go ahead and leave it at that. For the minor count spacing, or minor spacing type, again, it would be nice to put step, but we're only left with count. So this is how many tick marks you want in between. And so what we'll do is, maybe we'll set that for 1. And so you can see it added 1 tick mark between each major tick mark. All right. Now, I typically like to remove grid lines from figures, but here grid lines actually make sense because you might want to look at the value of some classes on the far end of your histogram. And so having these grid lines will help you source that grid line back to the value on the vertical axis that's far on the left-hand side when you're kind of looking at frequencies on the right-hand side. So we'll leave the major grid lines in, but if you want to be able to see them when they're printed, change it so it's a black color. Okay, something that's stronger. And we could do the same thing with minor grid lines. So instead of auto, change it to black, something like that. Again, it would be kind of nice to be able to make these dashed instead of solid. But we don't have an option for that, so we can't do it. Now, what we want also is we want major tick marks. So probably major tick marks are not necessary here, but I'm going to click them on just so you see what it looks like. And that brings up some more options. And we want those tick marks to be on the outside. We want them to have a length of 6. Line thickness, we'll put that at 2. And line color, we'll make it black. All right. And at this point, you could just leave it. We don't need minor ticks. It might actually be helpful to not add a tick mark there, so that if you're tracing up to this one, you would be sure not to confuse it with these two. But if you wanted to turn that on, just click on it, choose outside, a length of 6, a thickness of 2, and a line color of black. And you could have something that looks like that. But arguably, you could make it better by taking that off. That might be a little bit easier to read. Okay, so now at this point, we've reached a level where we can stop. We've done everything that we can possibly do within Google Sheets to affect the format of this histogram. And if we compare this to the goal that we were shooting for, okay, this is where I created, I prepared a histogram ahead of time. You can see the difference is that I had a slant label, okay, which is okay. Whereas in this run through, we had a 90-degree label here. And when I prepared it ahead of time, I had a spacing of 10 with every major grid mark. Whereas here with you, I'm doing it by 20s, and I had a minor tick in here. So this is just showing you maybe 2 different ways to present it, but both ways are equivalent.